G'day Justin, and welcome to this interview.
G'day mate, how you going?
Alrighty. Now Justin, I believe you hail from Queensland. Whereabouts?
Bundaberg.
Bundaberg?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm born in Bundaberg and did a lot of growing up in Bundaberg. Also did a lot of growing up in Western Australia, but Bundaberg's home.
Oh, cool. When did your love of music start?
I've loved ever since I was a kid. In fact, my mum always says that I was singing before I could talk. I used to love it, and she always tells stories about how I used to go out in the backyard and serenade the neighbours and stuff, that sort of thing, making up songs. One of the classics I think was, My Brother's Chicken's Bum was one of the early songs that I wrote.
Now it is evident that long before X Factor, which we'll talk about a little while, you were singing and entertaining. So when did it all start for you?
I guess in many ways music has been a bit of a hobby, a bit of a pastime. Never really took it very seriously. When I was in my late teens, my dad was a musician, and he dragged me along to some of his shows when I was like 16, 17, 18, and we ended up doing some duo work. So that's really, I guess, where I first started my first experiences of performing. I always suffered a lot from nerves and that sort of thing, and by the time I got to my mid-20s I kind of pretty much given it away. But then in my 30s I sort of started picking it up again and just playing around doing a few things.
Now I also believe that you studied in Sydney.
Yeah. Yes, I actually moved to Sydney. I'd moved from Bundaberg a few years ago and was living in Dubbo, and I got roped into doing a musical, and I'd never even seen a musical, let alone been in one, and it was just a funny little thing. It was a Gilbert and Sullivan thing, and after that I was approached to play a lead role in a big production of Les Mis, and I played a part of Marius in this amazing musical, and I got switched on to musicals, and I thought I really want to do more of that. So that was the large reason why I went to Sydney to do some of that sort of stuff. I didn't end up doing any of that sort of stuff, and in fact I ended up going down a totally different path and ended up doing cabaret shows in and around Sydney and that sort of stuff, all tongue-in-cheek,
But why not?
Yeah, why not? It was a lot of fun.
And I also believe that you taught prison choir. Yes,
a few years ago. I decided to go to university. I never really finished my education when I was a kid, and then I worked really hard and I managed to get into a university that I really wanted to do. It was in Sydney. I want to be a school teacher. I've always loved teaching. I've taught in some remote schools in Queensland and that sort of thing, but I thought I'm going to get a formal qualification. And while I was there, I was very broke. I was surviving on a cleaner's wage, and trying to do full-time uni and stuff, and picking up little gigs and stuff here and there if I could. And then this job came up. They said, would you be interested in teaching a prison choir? And I thought, there's no way I could do that. That's, in a prison, a maximum security prison no less. And I thought, no. I turned it down 3 times, and then I got so broke living in Sydney. I was desperate. I said, okay, I'll do it, thinking that maybe I'll just do it for a month or two and just see how it went. And I remember when I first got there, I thought this choir, I was led to believe this choir had been going for quite a few years. And then when I got there, I was told, oh, okay, look, we've got the Premier of New South Wales coming in a month. We want the choir to perform for them and for 180 people and some dignitaries and the rest of the prison. And I said, okay, great, what pieces do they know? Oh, they don't know any songs. Most of them have never sung. We actually haven't really had a choir going for about 5 years. Oh, yeah. And it was a very daunting experience. But the girls, it was a female prison, and the girls just worked really hard. And then I ended up staying there for nearly 3 years, I think, all up. Wow. I stopped before I went on the X Factor. It was one of the requirements of going on the show. Once you got a certain way into the show, you had to give up study and work and sort of just concentrate on doing X Factor.
Oh, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And besides prisons, you also taught in schools.
Yes, yep. Once again, I taught choirs, country choirs. I taught a number of them. I've taught at a few country choir festivals. And then I was approached to teach songwriting schools and the Queensland music syllabus in really remote schools up in Queensland. And I did the first one in a very small town called Valkyrie. There's literally just a schoolhouse and there's nothing else for many, many miles, and I loved it. And then the word got around, and then suddenly I was doing quite a few schools in that area. I did that for a couple of years, and it was fantastic.
And you were a contestant on X Factor back in 2012. Now, many of us know the stories why you auditioned. Although, can you give a quick run through of your audition and how it panned out for you?
I always thought when I went to the X Factor auditions, I would just be doing one song. I was going to go and find my family, and they stopped making that show. And it was actually my prison choir that said, "Why don't you do the X Factor? You could sing all right, you know." So I thought that's not a bad idea, because I knew my kids, they're all teenagers, and lots of teenagers watch that show. So I went on the show. But the funny thing is, when I first approached them, I didn't tell them my real story. They just thought, oh, some interesting old fart who taught a prison choir. And I didn't tell my real story until I got on that stage in front of the 4 judges, and it was like someone had dropped a bomb. And the reason why I didn't tell my story up front was because I thought it's such a contentious story, you know, for a you know, I'm a gay man, and I'm looking for my missing children, and I thought they might not put that on air, so I didn't leave that, you know, secret, as it were, until I was right there in front of the judges. And they just handled it beautifully. I think they were gobsmacked, and they actually grilled me for quite a while on stage, but they didn't show that part of it. And I sang my song, and I remember I had this really vague moment when I finished, because it's so emotional, you know. Suddenly there's 5,000 people watching you and these judges, and I remember, I think it was Mel B, she said, "Congratulations, you're going to boot camp." And I thought to myself, what's boot camp? Are they going to make me lose weight? You know, because the only show I could think of with boot camp was The Biggest Loser. Oh. And but it was a surreal experience, and I thought that was all I would have to do. And that's when I learned, well, no, lots of people get through that first audition. You've got to keep going in order. If I want to get my message on television, I have to get a certain way in the competition. So I had to work my butt off, but I was determined to get my message out there. And
you certainly did.
Yes, yeah, I did, and it was, you know, it was a magic moment. After that first show went to air, you know, literally I had tried anything you can think of to find someone in Australia. You know, the police, Centrelink, you know, electoral rolls, schools, also. So I didn't think it was. Part of me didn't think it was really going to work, and then after I sang, I got 5,000 messages on Facebook, and I read every single one, and I came across this one, and it's one of those moments that's just burned into my memory. It was from a girl called Megan. She was only 14 years old, and it simply said, "My friend thinks you are her dad. Her name is Charlotte Louise Standley Thompson." And I thought, this is it. You know, she at least knows my daughter. And literally 1.5 hours after that show went to air, I was talking to Charlotte, and then we tracked down my older daughter, and then I was also Today Tonight flew me over to Western Australia where my older daughter was living, and then we had our reunion over there as well. And now we talk every day. We see each other all the time. It's fantastic.
And one just has to look on a Google search.
Oh, yes.
Now, your story is written up in various publications across Australia, including the Sydney Morning Herald, Daily Telegraph, DNA, Courier Mail, the Morning Bulletin, and so on. Now, your story was picked up rather quickly.
Yeah, it was picked up really, really quickly. And I think a lot of people just got on board, and I think a lot of people kind of had an emotional investment in it. I'll always feel really, really blessed that all the media handled it really, really sensitively and really, really well. I was just very, very lucky, because it could have gone really horrible. You know, but for the most part, particularly during that phase of the X Factor, the media were fantastic. And we had to treat it really carefully, because there's a lot more to the story, of course, you know. And I was very protective of my girls, because this was a really desperate measure, you know. And you don't know how a young person's going to react if suddenly they're cast into the spotlight and are meeting up with their dad, who they haven't seen for 12 years. Sure. They just handled it beautifully.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yes.
Now, you were eliminated from X Factor.
Yeah, after the 3rd week.
Yeah. What happened next?
It was funny because I'd never really thought about doing music professionally. At the time I was still at university,
yeah.
and I was very keen on finishing my degree, but I thought it would be, I picked up so many supporters along the way that I thought I felt like I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't do something with music. And of course my passion is country music. It always has been. I love lots of different genres, but I love country music the most. And I thought, right, I'm going to give this a red hot go. I'll do it for 1 year, and then if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to go back to my normal life after that.
And what's that?
Yeah, exactly. I'm still trying to figure out what normal is. So for that year, I learnt heaps about particularly about the country music industry, and you know, and it was a really steep learning curve, and I got burnt many times along the way, but I also had some amazing adventures along the way as well, and met many beautiful people in the process. But it's funny because when I got to the end of that year, not everything had gone according to plan, and I was dreadfully bankrupt and in debt at the end of that first year, and I made up my mind. I actually ended up being a finalist in the Toyota Star Maker competition last year, and I thought, right, you know, I don't think I'm really going to win it, because I am, you know, I'm in my 40s. I think I was actually the oldest contestant ever to make it to the live shows on the X Factor, and similarly with the Toyota Star Maker, I'm quite an older person, you know. And so, but I thought, okay, that's going to be my last hurrah. I didn't really think I had a chance of winning it. There were so many other great talents. And that year, Jared Porter won it. As soon as I heard him sing and met the bloke, he's such a nice bloke, I thought, you deserve to win, I hope you win it. And he did. But that, I was going to make that my last hurrah. And so it was already in my mind. I could not keep going the way that I was. I was so desperate. In fact, I remember at Christmas time, I was driving between towns. I had no money. I had nothing in my bank account. I didn't even have enough petrol in my car to make it to the next town to do the next show. It was that bad. And I thought I had to open up my kids' Christmas cards and take money out of it just to pay for petrol and food. And I thought, I can never be in this place again. You know, so I made up my mind. I've just got to cut my losses, as it were. I loved the music. I really loved it, and the audiences had always been really fantastic. So when I did Toyota Star Maker, I thought I was finishing on a high, and but I thought I can't go anymore, and that's when I wrote my rather notorious resignation letter.
Now, in June 2013, I should say, you released your debut CD, produced by Lindsay Butler here in Tamworth.
That's right.
Can you tell us about that particular release?
It was once again, that was in that first year, and it was a real learning curve, learning about recording, production, songwriting, and I very quickly learnt the best way for me, and I think for many artists, to write is just from the heart. So I wrote about things that were important to me, you know, my Indigenous heritage, my family, my children. There was a few covers on there that were significant or really meant something. That's how that album was kind of formed. It took a long time because Lindsay Butler is a very busy producer, and I came on board with LBS, and they were very busy. So the recording process took a long time. I was sort of squeezed in between other artists and when I could make it to Tamworth. And I remember when we were choosing songs, it was suggested, look, why don't you write a song about that moment of reconnection with your children? So I thought, okay, yeah, all right. So I wrote A Father's Love, and I thought, oh, people might not get this song because it's very personal, a lot of personal references in it. And once Lindsay heard it, he said, that's the title track, the whole album's going to be named that, and that's going to be your first single. So it was an amazing experience, and lots of highlights, and that was certainly one of them, recording with Lindsay Butler.
To date, how many EPs or albums have you released?
Well, Father's Love was my first CD. I then recorded a charity CD for Relay for Life in my hometown of Bundaberg, and that did incredibly well. It's still selling really well, and that was a collection of songs of a number of country artists and folk artists from around Bundaberg. The first single did really well as well. That was Stand By Me. I then also recorded a comedy album, and I was so ambivalent about doing this. But I love a good laugh, as I know you do too. and in my shows, I always try to chuck in something funny. You know, I think it's good to take people on an emotional journey. You can't always have people, you know, being too serious, or it's good to break things up. But I was so nervous about it, and you probably will notice this on my album. I haven't even put my name on it. It's just the title of the album. Just in case it went pear-shaped and nobody liked it. But it actually sells incredibly well, and it's a cheap as chips album, and I use the funds from that to pay for my other albums. And I've just released a new EP here in Tamworth this year, and I have another very special project in the pipeworks now as well. And
tell us a little bit about this red light.
I remember as soon as you saw it, I said, "Oh, red light district, eh?" Oh.
Bloody oath, eh?
Well, seriously though, that particular story, there's a song on the album called Red Light, and it actually does deal with a number of issues, and it's based on true events and true things, and it is it is, not to put too fine a point on it, it is about prostitution on that song. It's not mentioned in the song or anything like that. I'm always really careful with my music, with my mainstream albums, because I've got it into my head that whatever I release mainstream, my comedy album isn't mainstream. It's just something I sell at shows and that sort of thing for people who are interested. But mainstream albums, I never want anything that children can listen to and get upset or confused by. So there's nothing really untoward or bad in that song. But it was a special song to me, and that's why the EP is called Red Light. And that song, it's actually also on the souvenir CD in Tamworth as well, which was a great sort of boost for me.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, no, I was pretty stoked, because a lot of people get that CD, and already I've only released that EP in the last couple of days, and it's just selling like hotcakes, which is great.
And getting back to the Star Makers Quest last year, got a standing ovation.
Yes, you know, that's one of those special moments I will never forget. I did something really unusual during that competition. The songs were all sort of, you know, quite a few weeks before the competition. The band knows what they're doing, and I thought, because this is probably going to be my last hurrah, I wanted to do something extra special. And I was writing a song, and I literally finished writing it during the intermission of the Toyota Star Maker competition.
Wow.
And I think the band thought I was crazy, but I thought, no, this song is really special. You know, it's everything about what I've been through, and it's for anyone that's lost someone and found them again. And I wrote this song called Hold On To Me, and we did it, and the place just erupted. And I thought, wow, what an amazing high to finish off on. And I've heard a number of people say that there have been a couple of standing ovations at the Toyota Star Maker before, but none of that kind of calibre. And I thought, well, that's a great affirmation for me. And I thought that was just incredibly special.
Now, over the past few years, you have earned various awards or accolades. Can you tell us what they were and when and what they were?
Gosh, probably just at the turn of the century. That was when I first got it into my head that, you know, maybe I could be a country music singer. Yeah. And I remember I entered a few country music competitions, and I did appallingly. And I was told pretty much in no uncertain terms that maybe I should think about doing something else, because I wasn't cut out to be a singer, certainly not country. And I was kind of devastated. And then something quite magical happened a few years after that. In 2003, I was in Tamworth. I think it was my first Tamworth, actually. And I actually went to the Golden Guitars. And out of all the many people that were there, Lee Kernaghan came running down through the audience. And he stopped and he shook my hand. I'm totally unknown, and I just thought, all right, maybe I shouldn't give up on this. Maybe in the back of my mind I should keep this dream just flickering. And so a few years after that, I entered the Parks Country Music Competition, just testing the waters. And I won the prestigious ACTS Awards in Parks. And but then after that was when I moved to Sydney, and so I sort of left it for a while. But then recently, I have started picking up a lot of different awards, and I'm really chuffed to be able to say that this year, on Tuesday night, which is the Tamworth Songwriters Awards, Association Awards, I'm up for 7 nominations for songwriting, which is just incredible.
Yes.
So I'm absolutely stoked. It's a huge, boost to my confidence not just as a singer, but particularly as a songwriter. And in many ways, it's probably one of my most proudest achievements, just to get 7 songs in the finals, because that competition is nationwide, and you get people from overseas entering the Tamworth Songwriters Association competition. There are a lot of special moments, and we have touched on some of them already. Yeah. The Toyota Star Maker will always be one of the highlights of my career. That was really special. There are many, and a lot of it has to do with the people that you meet and the connections that you make. I could go on for ages, but at the moment, as we just mentioned, actually, it's got to be the Tamworth Songwriters Association. The fact to have that many songs nominated is just the best feeling, and we'll see what happens on Tuesday night if I actually get to win any of them.
Well, definitely, congratulations on that. That most definitely. And what is Justin planning on doing for the rest of this year? The
rest of this year, I have a really special musical project which I can't talk too much about, okay? But a lot of people are helping me to produce a really special album. That song that I wrote last year, Hold On To Me, is going to be the concept and probably the title track of a really special album. A lot of the songs that are up for awards here in Tamworth are going to be on that album. So I'm going to take my time in producing the best possible album that I can produce, using all the information and all the things and all the resources and contacts that I've collected over the last year and a half or so. And already what's being produced I'm incredibly proud of and incredibly happy with, and the people that have heard it have just absolutely loved it. I always approach my projects as being, this could be the last time I do this, so I'm going to put my heart and soul, everything into it. That's my biggest thing. Of course I'm still touring. I'm also still going to uni. It's my last year of uni, but this year is really a year of building up. 2016 is when I'm really going to sink my teeth, boots and all, into country music. And I must admit, your first appearance at the Mildura Country Music Festival, I've got some good feedback from there that it went well for you. That was fantastic. I was so not prepared for it. I could only go for 3 days, but in that 3 days, that was actually a bit of a turning point, the Mildura Festival, because it was the first time I really felt like I really am an Australian country music artist, and I was so well supported. The shows that I did were really well patronised, and I thought, I think I could very happily do this for the rest of my life. Well, I hope they invite you back. Yeah, I've been invited back. Justin, on that note, thank you for this interview, and we'll definitely get it up on YouTube so everyone can see it, and we'll send you the link and have it on radio as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.